My time in India comes to an end, I fear. I won't miss the frightful heat or the constant instability brought on by the Sikh Empire's incursions into English territory, but I had grown to enjoy the company of the people quite a bit. Truth be told, the people of Mysore have my sympathies. At least with the company, they still had their king, but now? Well, if the war continues on its current path, he will be deposed. I have watched the very fabric of this vast land change, from a network of interlocking princely states to this push for hegemony by the Maharaja of the Sikh Empire. It is truly very disconcerting. Not to mention the constant smoke and smog. One can never tell if it's from the new factories or from gunfire at the front lines these days. It's just not for me, I'm afraid. I'll seek out some new place to call home and settle down there, I think. I bid a fond farewell to the India I knew, and I wish its people the best of luck. Onwards, then, to other adventures. From the diary of an unknown Englishman residing in Mysore until its liberation at the hands of the Sikh Empire. Hey everybody, it's PartyElite. Welcome back to our Sikh Empire run in Victoria 3. Things are looking pretty good right about now, as we have made yet another solid move against the East India Company. It brings me such joy to see their name so small across the map over here, and separately, I suppose, up over here as well. You can barely read it. I have to zoom in all the way, and only then can you actually see East India Company. Makes me feel so very, very good. But folks, there are a few consequences to the East India Company based on our moves, and I just want to very quickly do a bit of an after-action report, if you will, before we start tackling some of the issues that we now face as a result of our successes. First things first, I just want to point out that us taking North Bengal means that the East India Company market is now split in two. They've got this section that's connected to these guys over here because they have built some ports down there, and of course connected to these guys as well. But then there's this section that is now completely isolated until they build some ports down over here in Pegu. For the time being, though, that means that the people of Assam and Pegu are completely disconnected from all those goods they were getting from the rest of the East India Company. Take a look, let's say, at Assam as well. You'll see the 0% East India Company market access over here. And what that means is all of their people are currently suffering greatly. If we pick a random pop type over here and take a look at their prices, my goodness, I don't think I've ever seen such massive gold stacks as the average price, and I don't think I've ever seen so much gold in one of these pop-ups. My goodness, look at that. They're paying through the roof for literally everything. And again, this is going to be short-lived, likely, because as soon as they build a couple of ports at Pegu, they'll get their market access again, and then they'll get access to all those goods that they've currently lost access to. But for the time being, until they get those ports up and running, these guys are going to be causing a lot of radicalism. They're going to be getting more and more upset. Their standard of living is going to drop. They're going to cause turmoil. So these are the after effects of war in a game like Victoria 3, where the economic damage and the social damage lasts for much longer than just the war itself. Apart from all this, of course, there is the larger economic damage done to the East India Company. If we take a look at their GDP, as you might expect, it's been given another huge blow here as it drops down and brings them to number 7 worldwide. I can't remember if they were already number 7 before the war, but I think they're safely nestled into that position now, as we've ousted them and taken number 6 for ourselves. So this feels very good, though with all that said, we do have to keep in mind they still have a sizable military and a decent number of ships as well, so it's not all smooth sailing moving forward. When we fight them next, we will still have to contend with quite a bit, and in the future, as we continue to take more of the Indian subcontinent for ourselves, I'm sure eventually France and Portugal are going to start raising their eyebrows, and they're going to start getting involved. Last time, I hate to say it, but the truth is we probably got very lucky that neither of those two nations got involved. Now, Portugal, I wouldn't be too worried about. Again, Portugal's not that big of a deal as far as their military strength is concerned, but again, just as a reminder, France is absolutely ridiculous with how it's got its barracks set up. We can see here they've got skirmish infantry and shrapnel artillery both, which is a lot of trouble because we are technologically behind, and should they get involved against us for any rhyme or reason, we'd get obliterated. And because of that, we have to be a lot more careful about when we declare our next war. Our truce with the East India Company lasts until the 6th of December 1864, which is all well and good, but I don't think that's when we're going to declare our next war. See, there are a few things we have to tackle first. Our infamy is through the roof. We're at 80.8, and I would very much like to wait until this reaches 0 or close to 0 before we declare that next war. Again, infamy makes it more likely for others to join up against you, and that just makes me a little nervous, and more so as we grow larger and larger. As a major power, we're likely to draw more attention our way, so I just want to minimize that attention as much as possible. So this time, rather than just waiting for the truce to end, I think we might try and wait for our infamy to hit 0, and then we'll dive on into the next war. Now, I say try because the fact of the matter is my patience can sometimes wear thin and an exciting opportunity might present itself, but that's the goal for now. If we are able to get our infamy right down to 0, it means our next war can include 3 states because they're each about 32 infamy apiece, and that is a significant amount of growth for us in a single war, which would be a nice thing to target. And with all that time we get added to our timeline, waiting for infamy to drop down to 0, we're going to actually develop our capabilities. We're going to develop all of our industries, including the military-industrial complex. Just as a reminder, right now we're researching triage, and apart from that as well, General Staff is spreading our way, but in order to get the benefits of General Staff and the skirmish infantry, we have to make sure we're either acquiring or otherwise producing ammunition, and in order to do that, there's a whole industry that needs to get set up and running, but it's going to be some time before we can do that. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, because there are other issues that need tackling first. I mean, radicalism is through the roof, of course, as a result of these conquests. Loyalists are sort of bouncing up and down around the same number. These two are big things I want to try and solve ASAP in today's session, or I say that, of course it'll take time for these numbers to drop, but I cannot have this at 35 million. I would love to get it below 30 if we can in this one session. Beyond that, of course, our population has skyrocketed once more. We did just acquire North Bengal and Mysore in its entirety, so of course that's going to happen. And the average standard of living seems to have dipped from the pre-war situation, it looks like, which makes sense, of course. All the convoys got shut down, all the trade got shut down, so people got very upset, and their standard of living dropped, and that all goes hand in hand, obviously. Beyond that, though, we could work a little bit on literacy as well if we get the opportunity to build some more universities, perhaps, and maybe get enough bureaucracy to get schools going. We'll see. And, of course, GDP, as we highlighted previously as well, going through the roof right now, looking absolutely fantastic. So, very pleased with all of that good stuff. And let's not forget, of course, the main object of our desire, the main impetus for the war we declared, right, and why Mysore was the primary target, the gold mines. You'll notice here, of course, we're getting quite a bit of money from the minting. 5150 is no small number. However, you'll also notice we're having some troubles of our own at Mysore with regards to goods shortages, and that's because Mysore is actually not connected to the Sikh market either. So the same problem that the East India Company is facing over here, we're facing down over here. But of course, we're going to be fixing it in no time. And the way to do that, folks, is going to be investing in ports. We're going to go ahead and build this port right up to level 4. That'll give us 20 infrastructure plus 5 per level when we use the cargo port production method. And beyond that, we'll go ahead and build some railways as well, but I would like to wait until these ports are finished first. It'll take about, what, 15 weeks time? 30 weeks for that last one? No, that's unacceptable. Let's go ahead and cancel all of that. I just realized our new construction center at North Bengal is using wooden buildings, so flip that to iron frame buildings instead. That gives us a little bit more construction to work with, and now when we go ahead and stack all 4 of these up, we can see instead it'll take 15 weeks and then 26 for the last one, but of course that's fine because the 26 weeks, it's not like we're going to wait until these 3 are done and then it's 26 weeks. That's going to tick down at the same time. So these numbers make a lot more sense to me, and that sounds good to me in getting some of the infrastructure going over here. That's plus 20 added on top of the 41 we have, so we're at 61. Still a bit of a shortfall, and that's fine though. At least it'll get us closer to having some Sikh market access. So after those guys are done, we'll go ahead and queue up the railway. Actually, you know what? Let's go ahead and queue it up right now. It's not like it can get built immediately. All of that is going to come from the investment pool. They are willing to pay for railways and ports, so we don't actually have to pay for these construction goods. The investment pool transfer is taking care of that, which allows us then to continue accruing some money, perhaps get out of debt, and then start spending our own money on other things that need developing. Now, To be fair, the investment pool isn't going to cover the entirety of these 4 port upgrades because 46.8k per week is required in construction goods, and we can see here these are going to take at least 15 weeks to get the first 3 done, and 15 times 46.8 is more than 425. It's simple mathematics, right? 10 weeks would be 468, and that alone is over our investment pool. So we're going to have to supplement the investment pool a little bit with our own money, and I'm okay with that because you got to spend money to make money. But for the time being, let's go ahead and accrue some wealth and make some moves in order to make sure we are accruing even more wealth, but doing so not at the cost of our people. I'm actually going to bring our taxation level down to this, because if we have it up over here or higher, you'll see that we'll get more radicals from standard of living decreases. And for the time being, I'm expecting a lot of standard of living decreases, especially because of how Mysore is disconnected from the rest of our market. So these guys are going to be paying through the roof for all sorts of goods, and that's why I want to avoid that extra radicalization the higher tier taxes will cause. So right down the middle we go. No need to give them any more relief than that, I don't think, but we'll also go ahead and reduce government wages ever so slightly, and I do believe military wages can be brought down as well. If we take a look at the armed forces, they're currently at -1. We actually can't bring them down that far, but we can bring them down to here because we don't need that high training rate anymore. A little bit of a negative there is fine, and this will just take them to -3, so we're still avoiding material waste that can make things extremely expensive. That should allow us to make a decent bit of money while we get everything up and running. And apart from that as well, down over here, as you can see, the landowners are once more taking advantage of their noble privileges, and that is taking a lot of money out of our hands, leaving it on the table, or rather leaving it on their tables to be specific. And again, because they are powerful, we're seeing a much stronger impact of these effects. In order to counteract that, I'm actually going to go ahead and finally enact censorship. There is this political movement that the landowners are a part of, and if we enact censorship, you'll go ahead and see over here, the landowners will actually go from -5 to 0, which ultimately means they're no longer going to take advantage of their noble privileges, and we're going to start getting all of that money. And at the same time, the benefit of censorship that gives us the extra strength in suppression and bolstering interest groups will allow us to shut the landowners down. So they're actually playing themselves. So congratulations, landowners, you played yourself. And as those noble privileges go away, we went from 18k to about 25k. That's no joke, folks. And again, as our trade routes start to become active once more, the tariffs should start going higher and higher as well. If we just take a look at one of our shipping lanes over here, you'll see, well, you can tell that they were previously damaged, and so now they are getting repaired, and we should see these numbers go higher, and as a result of that, the tariffs generated from these trade routes will go higher as well. We could take a look at our trade routes and see if there are any that are too unproductive or otherwise problematic, if there are any that we should consider replacing with others, or perhaps some tariffs we should change. You know what, actually, being here makes me wonder about liquor. Our people are paying quite a bit of money over top of what they should be paying, and a part of that does include, well, okay, not actually, it doesn't include liquor, but we can bring those prices even lower. If they're paying less for something that was already cheap, then they have a bit more money saved up for other things that are presently expensive. So why don't we go ahead and cancel one of those liquor export routes to save some more money across the board? Because again, everybody uses liquor outside of specific religions. Of course, there are some people for whom it's a taboo, and so they're less likely to consume it. They do still consume it, but less so. So I think we can further reduce the cost of liquor by holding on to a bit more in our own market, and we'll do that while we wait for the price of paper and, I suppose, coal and furniture and everything else to come down as well. So yes, we'll go ahead and remove the liquor export route to Portugal, I suppose. The other option is, of course, to simply try and protect domestic supply to get more from tariffs and encourage these trade routes to shrink a little bit. So why don't we go ahead and do that first and just see how much of a difference that actually makes. I don't think it'll make that much of a difference, but we'll try it. And then afterwards, we'll go ahead and perhaps sacrifice the trade route we have with Portugal to save a few convoys and to also maintain the most productive of these routes and also maintain the route that doesn't actually consume any convoys in the first place. Baking powder has been unlocked. All right, good to see. We can't use it because food industries haven't been set up in our nation just quite yet, but that is something that I would like to get going because groceries are a great replacement for all other food types, and they're used across the board for pops of all wealth levels, as you can see. So it's a good thing to actually have, as it does swap other types of food out quite nicely. something to consider, but I do think other things have to take the priority here. Now, as canneries begin to spread across our nation, further helping food industries with an additional production method, much good that'll do us, we're also going to go ahead and import some tools from the Russian market. Not going to take any convoys because, again, we share a land border with the Russian market now, and it'll just help reduce the increased cost we're seeing for tools over here. Tools are required across the board for basically all advanced industries, so let's import as many as we can really from the Russian market. We might involve some other markets as well, but I just want to see how much of an impact that has, and we'll be improving our own production of tools as well. So just want to keep an eye on exactly what makes a difference and how before we jump the gun on doing too much of any one particular thing. Again, just as a reminder, part of the reason the price is so high right now is because of all the construction that's going on, but that's also part of the reason why I want the price to stay low, because if it stays low during construction, it means construction is less expensive, and that's good both for us as the government, but also for the pops involved in the investment pools. Meanwhile, looking at our buildings over here, it seems as though the North Bengal farms aren't producing any fruit, so let's go ahead and get them using fig orchards. And apart from that, let's get these millet farms down at Mysore producing fig orchards as well. The livestock ranches might be okay as they are right now. At Mysore, they're not producing the extra meat provided through butchering tools or slaughterhouses, but until they gain access to those tools, I don't think I'm going to increase the cost over here. We're going to avoid that for the time being, but I do have to remember I decided to ignore that, because if I don't do it immediately when these ports become active, I'm just wasting an opportunity to produce more meat and keep the price down. Iron mines, meanwhile, over at North Bengal should be using the condensing engine pump as well, though hopefully the price of coal doesn't start to go through the roof as well. That is something that we will need to take care of, because that's going to be expensive for our pops as well. Why don't we go ahead and bring this down to the atmospheric engine pump instead? Maybe that'll give us some better numbers over here, though we did just fire a couple of people, I think, in order to do that. It is what it is. Hurt a couple feelings. What can you do? Nonetheless, let's go ahead and take a look now at our fishing wharves, which should probably be using the fishing trawlers. I'm not sure if we have enough clippers. It looks like we don't. So fair enough. We'll leave that as is for the time being, but eventually we would certainly like to bring the price of fish down, because it is a common staple sort of good that a lot of our people are eating, and it'll just help keep them a bit happier, I suppose. Looking over here, by the way, we can take a look at the glassworks, where North Bengal actually has some glassworks as well, pretty highly leveled up as well, but they are currently using forest glass. I'm not going to go towards crystal glass because, again, at Punjab alone, we're not providing enough lead. So until we fix that, we're going to keep away from the one at North Bengal, but eventually we'll switch that around. And meanwhile, the urban centers could use some adjusting. It looks like we have a little bit of an issue here at Mysore using the market squares. Let's go ahead and flip that, I think, to market stalls instead. If we take a look here, you'll see that glass is tremendously expensive. Bad example, though. Mysore, everything's going to be tremendously expensive. Let's go over here instead to South Bengal. If we flip on market squares, yeah, that price is through the roof. If we take a look at North Bengal as well, we'll see price is through the roof. So let's get rid of the market squares, go down to market stalls. It'll produce slightly fewer services, but I do think that's the right way to go about it, because otherwise we're going to prevent our people from being able to afford the glass that they need, and I would much rather have it in the hands of the people, I think. So Mysore, you're fine as you are. Delhi, let's go ahead and get market stalls going over there as well. And across the board, we're okay outside of Mysore, where the gas streetlights are consuming a fair bit of coal. So back to unlit streets, and I really want to up the production of coal in the Empire so that we can start lighting the streets up and just providing for all of the industries that we have, really. The arms industries across the board, meanwhile, are using a variety of production methods. If we go ahead and get them all using rifles, we'll see a further consumption of steel and tools. We can't afford that right now, so let's leave it be as is. And otherwise, I think we're done managing our buildings. There is a government administration building or two that could be switched to the higher tiers of bureaucracy production with the higher tiers of production methods here, but that's going to take a lot of paper, so we're not going to do that until we can get the paper mills going at a faster rate. But lots of buts today, I suppose. We are still in the process of building these ports and the railway after that. You can see we are now draining our own coffers as the investment pool has been completely drained. They are still providing a bit of money, their weekly income, so to speak, but the rest of it is being paid by the government. Not the end of the world, it's a bit of a hit, but we'll be just fine. It's funny, I was just considering my influence situation because it wasn't maxed out, but as I was thinking about it, down over here you'll see improved relations with Portugal has been broken because we reached the maximum capacity of that maneuver or that action, and so it cancelled itself, and now our influence is as high as it can be pretty much. I'll take the 23.2% versus the maximum cap of 25%. We could stop our embargo of Afghanistan, I suppose. There's no reason to keep that going. They could be a valuable trade partner. Maybe we can make some money off of, you know, tariffs and stuff. So sure, why keep this embargo going? Afghanistan, come on, trade with us. I know previously they were stealing some of our artillery when we needed it most, but that situation is behind us now, so we'll get rid of the embargo and see how that changes things, I suppose, as far as our income is concerned. And of course, we try to appease one group and the other group gets upset. A new political movement to preserve the right of assembly has formed. Their support is 11 and their radicalism is 37. I hope that doesn't stick around for too long. I know I'm upsetting the intelligentsia, and I know I want them to be happy. I need them, in fact, to be happy so I can bring them into our government, because they have a lot of laws that I would like to eventually have passed. You'll see, for example, they have the total separation of church and state, which I would love to bring in so that we can get public schools going as well. Again, they're huge supporters of that. So I do very much like the intelligentsia. However, we just have to step on a few toes for the time being. You can't make an omelet without breaking a few eggs, right? And unfortunately, the current eggs being broken are, well, they're being broken over the heads of the intelligentsia, I suppose, and at their homes and in their general direction. A lot of egg tossing going on, and they're getting very upset. I'm a little nervous about the level of radicalism, though it is on its way down. That's very promising. It's going down at a decent rate. This plus 6.64 million isn't a good sight, but that negative 4.02 million is a good sight. My goodness. Okay, so that 6.64 is largely coming from the 11.31 from being conquered by a foreign country. That's fair. This negative 4.02 is actually our doing. That's something we had control over. So that makes me very happy that we've managed to make a difference. And in just a moment's time, again, with these ports completed, Mysore is going to end up largely connected to the Sikh market. And then they're going to start seeing some mood swings as well in the positive direction as they finally get access to a variety of goods that I'm sure they're struggling to acquire right now. And if we just take a look here, yeah, you'll see their standard of living is dropping. You'll see the prices are through the roof, but all that should be fixed up as soon as those ports get done, which shouldn't take too much longer. It's Sunday night, Monday morning. There you go. The port at Mysore is done, and as it gathers strength, as it becomes more and more productive, we should see infrastructure go slightly higher and higher. I believe we're expecting an infrastructure of 15 and then plus another 5 in 11 weeks time, and already you can see we're making a bit of money back actually, and I think that's because we're spending less on construction right now. We only have 2 things queued up, which is promising. That's actually not bad at all. And Great Britain is no longer interested in South India, it would seem, which is good. I would like them to all stick their noses elsewhere, get out of my town, leave my subcontinent. Of course, I can't expect the same behavior from France or from Portugal. They literally own territory in the region, but that'll eventually be taken care of. Of course, we're buddying up with them for the time being. We're buttering them up, but once they're fully surrounded in their enclaves in the subcontinent, then we'll flip the script on them, give them an opportunity to leave peacefully, and then force them out if they decide to stay. You know, with us enacting censorship, it seems as though the armed forces are just a little bit happier as well. So why don't we go ahead and actually reduce their wages a bit further and just try to accrue a bit more wealth for ourselves as well. Again, anything we can do to help push these numbers higher and higher so that we can invest in the other construction that needs doing. The investment pool is still not filling up because they're helping us build the infrastructure in Mysore for the time being, but eventually after these are done, I would like to build stuff with the government's money while the investment pool once more grows, and then we can use them to build some more farms and just, well, a variety of things actually. You'll see what I mean when the time comes. Now, with Mysore having joined our market, I suppose we could get their livestock ranches using these slaughterhouses as well. Tools remain prohibitively expensive. You know what? We overdid it there, so fair enough. Stick to the open-air stockyards for the time being. Prices here are low across the board, so this is perfectly fine. Let's consider these changes after we get our tooling workshops perhaps built up a little bit. But before we do that, we actually have to invest in our mines as well. So why don't we go ahead and use some decrees to bolster production instead? After all, enlistment efforts are no longer needed at Delhi or at Punjab, so we can get rid of those, and instead we can go ahead and encourage the resource industry industry at, I suppose, Balochistan to get the extra steel, or sorry, the extra iron coming. And then we can also go ahead and promote the manufacturing industry in Punjab. We're already doing that. So why don't we go ahead and encourage the resource industry in Kashmir to get some extra coal coming through the mines over there. Balochistan is going to be important to us in a few different ways as far as mining is concerned, and that'll come into action shortly, I believe. And Sindh is soon going to see some mining as well. Beautiful to see that as that port gets completed, we're making so much more money. As I said, we can actually keep construction going now. Our economy is actually strong enough to do multiple things at once, and that feels so good considering how we started and where we are right now. In fact, why don't we go ahead and use this money in a few weeks' time after we get out of our debt? No. Why? How could you? Nawab Kunwar has died. My goodness. That's unfortunate. August 10th, 1860, a glorious general, leader of the rural folk, has retired from political life by virtue of dying just before censorship was introduced to our empire. Again, the landowners have sort of, as I said previously, played themselves here because we're going to continue pushing them down. Again, every time we gain more territory, they gain more political strength and clout because they're a large number of the population in all of these various places. If we take a look over here, in fact, you'll see they are actually, you know, we've done a very good job of neutering them in most of our empire. North Bengal is where they're most heavily present at the time being, and that will be hopefully short-lived. We'll continue to reduce their clout. We're going to continue suppressing them, and hopefully we can keep that downward momentum going. Hopefully we can bring it back. But for the time being, they have been appeased with the introduction of censorship, and I'm not sure how that's going to play out as far as some of the other policy changes I'd wanted to make, but it seems as though the recognition of accomplishment over here is about what? The recent investment in Kashmir has brought a positive balance for the coal mines there. Interest groups are quick to try to claim credit for this investment. Oh, I see, I see. So do we give all the credit to the industrialists, to the landowners, or the workers? You know, I'm tempted to give it to the workers. The landowners right now are appeased enough. We've done plenty for them with censorship. The industrialists, they're far from being upset, so we're far from tax avoidance. The workers aren't all that powerful, so we could recognize the workers once more, just like we celebrate the generals and soldiers for all the military victories and the military glory of the nation. We should equally celebrate the workers for all of our productivity. And folks, here we go. The railway has arrived to Mysore. This should be fairly good as it kicks in a full gear. We should see the Sikh market access increase significantly, and as that's happening, and as we now have less to worry about in terms of people getting upset or having to pay too much for various goods, we can actually start incorporating the state. The reason why I was waiting just that little bit of time there is because I didn't want to tax the population while they also paid through the roof for a variety of goods. That is a recipe for disaster, but having waited now, they're paying less for goods and they can use some of those savings to pay off taxes. Of course, we'll want to try and get violent suppression going because we are going to suffer from a little bit of turmoil in Mysore, I believe. I'd be surprised if we weren't suffering from turmoil. There it is. So I want to avoid that 49.9% tax waste as much as we can. My goodness, why is it so high? And in order to do that, we're going to go ahead and get, yes, violent suppression in Mysore. The increased mortality will hopefully reduce some of the radicals as well. And we're doing pretty well, actually. I said my goal was to get below 30 million, and we've already managed that. So feeling pretty good about that. And otherwise, feeling pretty good about this as well. Plus 33.6K when we're not building anything. The investment pool is slowly growing. I'm not going to tap into that just quite yet. But why don't we go ahead and, yes, build some of those mines I was talking about. So first order of business is at Sindh. We're going to go ahead and build some of these sulfur mines. I do believe Sindh is one of the most productive regions for sulfur in the area. Yeah, I mean, again, there are, of course, significantly more productive regions elsewhere in the world, but in our neck of the woods, we can see that Sindh is quite the powerhouse. So we'll get these sulfur mines going. We'll, of course, get them using the condensing engine pump, and that should be all for the time being. The rest of the money we have left over, we'll go ahead and invest in Balochistan's lead mines. We're going to use this lead for a lot of stuff. We're going to use this sulfur for a lot of stuff. They are very important resources moving forward into the future, and I want to to make sure we start acquiring them as soon as possible so that we can use them as best as possible. Again, lead we already need for our glass works, right? So let's get that going. 15 weeks is all it'll take for both of these guys to get done, 14 and 15 weeks, so that's not too long a wait. And I mean, hey, we're somehow still in the positive, only barely, so I'm sure it'll go into the negatives, but I'll gladly take that little bump for sure. Alright, excellent. Dialectics has been researched. It'll help us with our education institutions when they eventually come around. It is what it is. It's not going to give us any help right now, but hey, again, we have no control over what's actually ever spreading to our empire, right? So we'll take what we can get. And now egalitarianism is spreading. Oh, that might be a dangerous one. That might trigger a handful of political movements that our nation might not be ready for. I'm very curious to see how this plays out when it finally kicks in. And it seems as though we have some secret societies forming in South Bengal. Clandestine groups of academics in South Bengal are plotting against the state to advance the misguided cause of the intelligentsia. We have found your blasphemous and treasonous books, your pamphlets, the shop you used to run as a front, your houses, the meeting places you thought you had kept secret. We have set them all to flame. All that is left now is your confession. My goodness, that's dark. It also ties in very nicely with the previous session's introduction, I suppose. Let's go ahead and leave them be. They pose no threat to us. We could punish the dissent, but you can see how the academics in South Bengal will become more radical. I don't think that's actually going to impact us too much, because I don't think there are that many academics in South Bengal for the time being. But I'm going to say leave them be. They pose no threat. This will actually allow the intelligentsia to grow a little bit more powerful, and while I don't want them to be immensely powerful while they're still angry at us, I do want them to have a bit of strength to try and enable them to push more political movements. Well, I don't hate right of assembly, so I don't mind this either, but I'm hoping they'll push some of those other laws I was talking about previously and try and force them to come through so that we can leverage that to our benefit, right? Well, as the sulfur mines here are close to being completed, I'm going to go ahead and head to Punjab to get their paper mills upgrading as well. That should be quite nice for us, and at the same time, it looks as though the lead mines have been completed. They still need to employ quite a few people before they start producing enough lead, so let's let time move forward a little bit more quickly here, and just see how they bring that market price down. We're not even fully employed yet. Oh, down it goes even further and further. Love to see it. That's going to make such a big difference. Beautiful. It's dirt cheap now. Lead is dirt cheap, which means not only can the glassworks at Punjab actually start to produce, glass and ceramics at a decent rate without having to worry about input goods shortages, but we can also head over to North Bengal and their glassworks and get them using crystal glass as well, and it'll be a bit more expensive over here, it seems. Do they have improper market access? Yes, that seems to be at least part of the problem over here. We could invest in a railway up here perhaps, or maybe instead for the time being we go down to leaded glass, which requires less lead, and just rely on that while we head back to the lead mines and actually upgrade them as well immediately. Again, we have plenty of money. It's still flowing through, and we got to spend money to make money, and this is a perfect example of not just spending money to make money, but also to make weapons and to make people happy and to reduce radicalism and, well, everything really. Yeah, as this lead mine continues to employ more people, we see the price over here dropping even further. You can see that spike is from when North Bengal started using lead, but again, it's dipping once more, and that's before the upgrade has even happened. It's still 14 weeks away, and if we actually go to North Bengal and its glassworks, you'll see here that there's no longer an input goods shortage, and in fact now the price of lead has dropped over here as well, despite the lacking market access. So that's working out very nicely. Let's take a quick peek actually at some of the other prices that our pops are dealing with. The upper strata are a good place to start, plus 9%. And what's going on over here? Coal and transportation are the ones that are through the roof. We can do something about furniture as well, and perhaps luxury furniture alongside that. Ideally, the price of porcelain is going to go down, and liquor seems to be a little bit too expensive. You know what? I think it's time for us to go ahead and cancel that one liquor route that we were talking about previously, the one to Portugal. Let's get rid of you. That will hurt our tariffs ever so slightly, but hopefully it brings again the price of liquor down and makes it a bit more palatable, I suppose, for our people. It does seem to be closer to the mean over here, closer to what it should be. So fair enough, we'll stick with that for the time being, and eventually maybe we'll look at other ways to produce more liquor. either way, that's enough on that topic. Let's head on over to Kashmir so that we can actually upgrade the coal mines here and get some more coal coming through, because again, coal isn't just about the pops, it's also about the various industries that consume coal. So keeping the price of coal down is absolutely essential, and I will definitely spend money to get more coal coming. Tools are also a big one. Tools seem to still be very expensive, and if we head on over to the tooling workshop here, we can go ahead and upgrade you to really eating into our budget now, but still feeling pretty comfortable about where the numbers lie. We could maybe take a look at the building section over here to get to our tooling workshops. There's just the one in Punjab, really, eh? Nothing else in any of the East India Company owned territories that we've taken over. Fair enough, it is what it is. Fine by me. And while we're on this screen, why don't we also get all of our universities to include a philosophy department? This will increase the rate at which people qualify for higher level pop types a bit faster, or a bit more, I should say, and it'll also increase the amount of innovation that's being pumped out of our universities. The paper mills in Punjab have been completed. Sulfur was dirt cheap, and now it's become a bit more pricey as it's starting to be consumed a bit more, so that's fine. But hopefully the price of paper will drop, and as it does, the actual cost to the government, and again, pops as well, will be adjusted accordingly, ultimately making us a bit more money. Very much a fan of having the government make some more money. We're actually accruing gold reserves now, which is promising, and the investment pool continues to grow as well. I think we're at that point now where we might be able to invest in the investment pool, by which I mean drain the investment pool, and what we're going to do is actually build up the coffee plantations down in Mysore. We have a lot of room for more coffee plantations, and this will help remove people from the subsistence farms down over here as well. But the thing about coffee plantations is they produce coffee, and the thing about coffee is that we're actually the #5 producer worldwide, which is huge. We're not as high as we need to be in order to acquire any of the prestige, but we're close. So why don't we go ahead and make an attempt over here to overtake the East India Company over the course of, you know, the next handful of months perhaps, or maybe a year or 2 or 3. But let's make some moves with regards to coffee and make the coffee of Mysore popular around the world. And on the topic of things that we produce a lot of, why don't we go ahead and take a look at one of our proudest accomplishments as far as production is concerned: opium. We are the #2 producer worldwide of opium, which is absolutely huge. We're very close actually to overtaking the East India Company and getting that +16 to our prestige. So still working away at it. This is largely because we've secured both North and South Bengal, as well as Delhi, the biggest producers in the subcontinent. And once we get Bihar as well, we'll be doing perfectly fine, and I'm pretty sure we'll outplay the EIC and be the #1 producer worldwide. Meanwhile, it seems that Balochistan is seeing a bit of a resource boom. Raw goods industries in Balochistan are reporting a small spike in goods production at our iron mines, which has led to an extra stockpile being available in the state, and there is now potential to reinvest it back into the state. Of course, we should invest this boost back into the industries. Without them, we wouldn't have this boost at all. Are you mad? Without the workers, you would have no one to run your business. We should be rewarding them, not you. It seems we only have the one option here, and I wonder if there are some variables behind the scenes that are preventing us from picking other options. Either way, Balochistan is going to get extra throughput across a variety of industries, including the mines. So that's wonderful. That'll help our lead and iron mines in Balochistan. And why don't we go ahead and take a look at the steel mills over here in Punjab as well. I worry that these guys will fall behind as time goes on, so let's go ahead and invest in upgrading you. Again, it'll drain from our own coffers, while the tooling workshops are almost done over here, another 9 weeks, and hopefully the cost of tools will drop down significantly enough, as the cost of coal actually has as well. That's good to see, the huge dip over there. Still a little bit on the higher side, so we could reduce the price a bit further by further upgrading the coal mines at Kashmir. But overall, I think we're doing a decent job in reducing radicalism and just making sure that everything is a bit more sustainably produced. Well, I say sustainably produced as we're highlighting coal. You know what I mean. For the time, for how the Industrial Revolution works, we're doing pretty well, I think. And I'm actually going to get Mysore using the standardized filing system now, because that should make our construction a bit more efficient. And I know it doesn't make the biggest difference, but hey, it's something. And at the same time, it should also give us better taxation capacity, so that the waste of tax over here is reduced just ever so slightly, but again, every little bit counts, right? And triage has finally been unlocked. This is going to be huge for all of our future wars, so very happy to see that in place. And let's go ahead and pick our next technology, which I think is actually going to be the next step from urban planning. One of the first things we researched actually in this playthrough is going to lead us to modern sewage, and this should, modern sewerage. Didn't know that was even a word, but hey, here we are. That should really help us with the infrastructure from the actual pops in a state as well, and perhaps more importantly, in some ways, it'll lead us to steel frame buildings, which I would very much like to have in order to get construction happening a bit faster, and then perhaps we can explore some of the more advanced buildings that you can see this unlocks. But for the time being, modern sewerage it is. It'll take us 29 months, which isn't too long. And if we hadn't done that, then we might have done hydraulic cranes instead, because that would allow us to upgrade our ports just a little bit more, and it would further lead to gantry cranes, which again allows us to do more of the same. But perhaps that can wait until next, because it will also take 29 months, and having higher level ports is obviously very helpful with regards to trading with all those foreign nations that we're trading with. Canada has been formed, so that's nice to see, but its flag is certainly an interesting color combination as well. But our focus shouldn't be over here at the grand and glorious nation of Canada. It should be down over here at the grand and glorious Sikh Empire instead, where the investment pool has grown to a significant sum once more. And so down at Mysore, we shall go ahead and build some more coffee plantations. Remember as well that this is sort of self-fulfilling in a way. The more we upgrade our various agricultural sectors, the more we'll see their weekly balance go up, and as soon as they get close to their cash reserves being maxed out, they begin to put some of the money into the investment pool. So the more money they make, the more money they're willing to put into the investment pool, and then the more we're able to use down the line to further upgrade and build and evolve. So that's another reason to actually put some of that money back into the same industries that provide that money in the first place. Apart from that as well, though, we of course want to use the investment pool to further our ports. We were just talking about them, so why don't we head on over to South Bengal, where I believe we're able to get one more level of ports done, and that should just help us with our trade routes as well. We look like we're kind of capped off over here. We have a few more available than required, but a lot of the time the next step up just requires that many more convoys. As you can see over here, for example, to export a little bit more to France, we'll need just a few more convoys than we actually have, though. Then again, do I really want to export more liquor to France? I wish you could fine-tune your trade deals a bit more, but I understand, of course, these are private interests separate from the government's interests, right? But I just wonder about the price of liquor at our own nation. I mean, again, our pops are doing okay-ish, it seems like. A few things are still a little bit too expensive, and we should work on reducing those price points. Tea, porcelain, coffee continues to be expensive, and liquor, you can see, has gone higher and higher. Alright, there's still some work to be done over here, and glass as well is still just a little bit too expensive. Okay, alright, not too bad, not too bad. We can go ahead and upgrade the glassworks over here at North Bengal, because they are slightly more upgraded. So sure, let's go ahead and keep the pressure on here, so to speak. And at the same time, why don't we go ahead and get the coal mines upgraded one more step too? Right, because we're already doing that. We'll wait until this is done, and then we'll add another step to it as well. Can never have too much coal in this era. Can absolutely never have too much coal. Now, with some time having passed and our construction having been largely completed, our balance is starting to look pretty good again. So why don't we go ahead and consider the fact that general staff isn't too far away from being researched. We have about, what, 4 to 7 months left to go, and I know that sounds like a long time, but to get the skirmish infantry up and running, there are a few things we have to invest in to make sure that everything doesn't fall apart as soon as we activate them. And let's go ahead and put ourselves in an optimal position to actually get this doctrine change happening as soon as it becomes available. In order to do that, one of the things we're going to need is the chemical plant, because that's going to help us produce a few things that the munitions plant itself is going to need, which of course is the other thing we're going to be building as well. And both of those will be going right into Punjab, because Punjab already has the decree active that increases how much we manufacture. And we want to double down on that and triple down on that and quadruple down on that. Whenever we can, we want to try and maximize the decree and authority usage, of course. Now, just as a reminder, because of this decree, we are seeing an extra 20% throughput across all manufacturing industries. That means things like the furniture manufacturing, things like the chemical plants will have a plus 20% throughput, as will the munitions plants as well. So Punjab is going to grow over time a lot more rapidly as we stay focused on it. But I do have to be careful not to put too much pressure on Punjab, because of course everything we build adds to the infrastructure requirement, and it actually looks like we're at that tipping point at Punjab, so we have to be very careful about that. Let's go ahead and counteract that with an additional step of the railway, and by additional step I suppose I mean the first step of the railway here in Punjab. That should make the people happy as well, as they'll start having some access at least to transportation, and beyond that as well it will start to drain our investment pool a bit further too. Right now that money is being used up on building the ports. The port is about to be done in about, 5 weeks time, so we should have at least some money left over afterwards to get the railway going, and I think there's going to be a bit of a temporary pause on the use of investment pool money, or slow down at the very least, because once the port is done, it's mainly going to be government money being used for glassworks, chemical plants, and munitions plants, while a little bit of construction and investment pool money is going to be used for railways, so it should provide some relief to the investment pool. We'll see. Either way, whether they need the relief or not, we need the railways, so we'll get that going still, and this should help us get into some sort of a position for when skirmish infantry become available. That being said, the chemical plants will require some additional sulfur in order to produce the explosives, which will need the LeBlanc process over here. So in order to get all that going safely and without any hitches or hiccups or anything like that, let's go ahead and invest a bit more in the sulfur mines as well. And of course, the coal mines up over here will get another little nudge upwards, as again, you can never have too much coal. Down at the bottom right corner, once more, we can see Great Britain is interested in both North and South India. You know, it sounds like Great Britain definitely wants to stay interested here, but maybe it's playing like hard to get or something. It's like, no, I'm not interested in you. Actually, I am interested in you. It's just back and forth non-stop. Like, I wish they'd pick a lane and stick to it. I just want them to make a decision, because I'm not sure if they're trying to step in and take the EIC back, or if they're trying to keep us in check, or what they're up to really. But I would really like some clarity. That would make me very, very happy. So just to highlight what I was talking about, the port just finished being constructed, and now as you can see, we are putting a little bit of construction effort into the railway. But if we take a look at the investment pool over here, you'll see it is still growing, because the amount being put into the railway isn't the full amount that's required, and so there's only a sort of partial investment pool transfer, I suppose we could call it, where a lot of money is going into the construction of the railway, yes, but not all of it. So the investment pool is still able to grow a little bit, and that just provides a bit of relief and allows the investment pool to stay growing as we are still making progress on something else. Of course, as soon as the glassworks is completed, the railway will become high enough of a priority that it'll have more construction resources dedicated to it, and it'll start draining the investment pool proper. But hey, every little bit counts, as I say time and time again, and because this provides a bit of relief to the investment pool, it might mean that we as the government have to just pay that much less into the construction that the investment pool is happy to cover. I'm really hoping the completion of this glassworks is going to help bring the price of glass and porcelain both down. This is something that continues to be expensive across the vast majority of our market. You can see North Bengal is actually seeing a very nice reduced price, but the rest of the Sikh market has a slightly higher price than North Bengal. What that means is North Bengal has enough production for its local population, but because of its reduced infrastructure and its lacking market access to the rest of the Sikh market, those surplus goods that are just lying around making the price of these goods cheaper here aren't actually getting full distribution across the entire empire, preventing a reduction in price elsewhere. So that surplus only applies in the local region. It doesn't reduce the surplus to balance prices out across the entire market, which means we should probably invest in the infrastructure in North Bengal. Again, we are hoping that our current technology, modern sewerage, will help supplement the railways we've been building and all the other efforts we've been making. But that is still a ways away, and I'm just not sure if perhaps it would be worth investing in the railway here. We'll give it some time. Down over here, we have the political movement to restore the right of assembly. being disbanded. That's nice to see. It was getting a little radicalized and it was making me a bit uncomfortable, but hey, it's gone now. And apart from that, what do we have over here going against the odds? Come on, never tell me the odds. Despite not enjoying full rights under Sikh law, some wealthier Hindu people have begun moving into neighborhoods and frequenting establishments they would normally be excluded from. So again, we may need some new regulations, or perhaps they have fairly earned their success with all it entails. Slowly trying to include more and more people into the dream of the Sikh Empire, and so yes, the Sikh priesthood will be made just a little bit more upset because they have fairly earned their success with all it entails. If we take a look at the Sikh priesthood, they aren't all that powerful, but they're certainly unhappy. Pious fiction over here is going to reduce education access, and that's fine, I suppose. I don't love it. We are going to try and counteract that in the very near future. At least that's my hope. This is kind of funny. Nawab Singh over here is a wrathful individual. What does that do? Reduces their interest group approval just by default? Well, that's nice. But no, jokes aside, we should really consider which of these interest groups we would like to empower. I think I've been so focused on disempowering the landowners so much that the topic of who actually takes their place has sort of taken a bit of a back seat at times. I certainly have liked the support of the rural folk across the various policies that they enjoy, but they have, I think, overstayed their welcome. I mean, now, a huge part of our population are rural folk, obviously, so we can't just stop paying them any attention, because then we'll certainly have revolutions on our hands constantly. But who takes their place, right? I quite enjoy the intelligentsia, I've said time and time again, so we would certainly like to empower them. And the trade unions, I do believe, have quite a few overlaps with the intelligentsia, and they might be a viable option as well, but at the same time, they also have the longest way to go, primarily because attracting people to the trade union interest group is really bolstered by the labor movement technology and the egalitarianism technology, which we haven't unlocked yet. So that will help sort of pushing in towards this direction. But at the same time, you can also see only pops that meet these criteria will consider supporting this interest group. And right at the bottom there, not employed in agriculture, ranches, or plantations buildings, which is like the vast majority of all of our work and effort. So as we industrialize, as we modernize, as we get more mines and factories going, we'll see more interest in joining trade unions and things like that, because right now we're basically relying on everything and everywhere trade unions don't appear, I guess, at least according to the game. So that's something to keep in mind. But I do think it's going to be trade unions and intelligentsia that we're going to try to empower, just because of, again, the laws they pursue. Now, I've been asked in the comments, what kind of a future do I envision for the Sikh Empire in terms of its politics and in terms of its approach to, well, the variety of sort of social and economic and political questions. And fact of the matter is, we'll see where the winds take us. I'm not 100% dead set on anything particular, and I'd love to hear if any of you have any thoughts of your own. I don't, at the moment at least, feel extremely strongly either way about that topic or the consideration of where we go next. Not in the sense of nonchalance or that I don't care, but more that I'm excited to see how the population evolves as we try to reach our ultimate goal, which is the subjugation of Great Britain and the formation of India. You know, right now, for example, in an interest of doing that, we're in the middle of completing the munitions plants and sulfur mines and coal mines, right? That is going to influence the kind of people that are being employed in the nation, and that will then influence which interest groups grow stronger and more numerous, and that might then further influence what political movements we see or what becomes more viable to enact. Just as an example, if we take a look at our tax laws over here, you'll remember we went from land-based taxation to per capita taxation, and I cannot remember if I highlighted this earlier this episode or not, but I've been meaning to. You'll see the gap between per capita taxation and land-based taxation has grown to a negative 4.52k. That means if we were still with our old taxation method, we'll be making significantly less money, and that's just a good way to see how, as we make progress, things change, values change, the need for change changes as well. Like, the gap between per capita taxation and proportional taxation used to be a huge negative. That negative, I believe, has now reduced to just negative 266. Granted, we're on a different tax level, but at the time we were at very high. If we go back to very high, we'll be at a positive 28.8. Granted, I don't want to go to very high. I want to avoid it as best as possible. But you can see how the decisions we make have knock-on effects to other decisions we'll have to make or we might end up making. So it's really a matter of what our ultimate goal is and where the wind takes us with regards to the other factors. That's part of the fun, in my opinion. That's like kind of exciting to me, not knowing exactly how the game's going to respond and what kind of events and dice rolls are going to perhaps help or hinder. Like, you know, tomorrow we could get an event that says, hey, the landowners have been absolutely obliterated, and all of a sudden we have mass upheaval because of, you know, the people that fill that power vacuum. And to me, that's exciting. Hopefully you feel the same way, but if you have a certain thing you'd like to see, or if there's something you think makes sense in terms of pushing forward, let me know in the comments down below. I always invite those kinds of conversations and discussions. I'm very open to that kind of stuff. I know there are lots of new subscribers who might not be familiar to the channel, which is why I'm saying that so much, because those of you that are familiar with the channel will know that I love that kind of like engagement and interaction with the comments and with all of y'all watching. So yeah, let me know if you have any thoughts on that front. And of course, if you've been enjoying the show, folks, don't hesitate to hit that like button as well. Just helps me know what people are enjoying on the channel. And would you look at that? Speak of the devil, just talking about how you never know what's going to cause what kind of a change. The Punjabi people have become obsessed with luxury furniture. God dang. Alright, that's going to be a bit of a problem. We already have the obsession with meat, and now we have an obsession with luxury furniture as well, as you can see over here. So meat was a bit easier to provide by and large. Luxury furniture might be a bit more of a challenge. Why don't we go ahead and increase the furniture manufacturing over here? I believe it's the only one we have in the entire empire. If we just check the screens over here, yep. So Punjab, let's go ahead and improve your furniture manufactories, and at the same time, let's go ahead and investigate our infrastructure situation over here. As you can see, we are now using 97 outside of the 91 limit, which means our market access has been reduced. How's the investment pool looking? It's got a bit of money. I don't think it has enough to cover the entirety of the railways, but let's go ahead and improve them over here, or perhaps wait until employment maxes out. I'm glad I checked that. It's not actually producing as much infrastructure as it can right now, so we'll give it a minute and we'll see if the situation fixes itself, and if not, we'll upgrade the railways by one more step. Meanwhile, as soon as we have begun the production of ammunition in Punjab, Great Ching have begun an import route, and I'm sure we'll see plenty more to come. We are currently, I think, one of the only providers in this region, at least, for ammunition. If we take a quick peek over here, we'll see the production on map is, yep, largely just France and its colonies. I think this is a French colony. Indeed, it is. And so that means we have a huge opportunity over here to have a bit of a monopoly if we want to invest that much. We need the military might, right? We need that strength, so we might have to invest that much. We're currently already the number 8 producer worldwide, which is hilarious to see. If we upgrade this quickly enough, we might actually start seeing quite a bit coming through, and a bit of prestige gained over here as well. Why don't we go ahead and protect the domestic supply, though? I would like to maximize the tariffs we charge for anyone who's trying to take our ammunition away. We don't want them to turn around and return that ammunition freely, if you catch my meaning. And up top over here, my goodness, we have a lot of unproductive trade routes right now, don't we? Let's get rid of the porcelain trade route. I don't think it's doing us any favors anymore since we're producing so much at home. And meanwhile, down over here, you can see the Persians have begun importing ammunition as well. We're going to see a lot of that. We have to make sure that we control the shipping of these goods when we need them at home ourselves. We don't need them just quite yet, obviously, because we don't yet have general staff, but when the time comes, we need to make sure we can flip the switch there. Let's go ahead and get rid of the coffee imports from Portugal as well. Again, we're producing coffee locally now. Same thing with sulfur. I think we can get rid of this. It's at level 2. So we'll leave it be for the time being, but just something to consider. And actually seeing steel over here reminds me I might want to upgrade the steel mill in Punjab, just because that's another thing that's going to be very useful moving forward as we you know, get more and more advanced processes going and more advanced buildings and structures going as well. Let's go ahead and upgrade you by a step. And we'll just wait for the coal mine and furniture manufacturers perhaps to finish building so that we can accumulate some wealth and do a bit of upgrading as well. The munitions factory over here is not having any luck producing too many munitions because the chemical plants over here are not yet using the LeBlanc process to actually get those explosives coming. So explosives were prohibitively expensive and also just not available. However, this switch should allow the chemical plants to make a bit more money, which should in turn allow them to hire more people and produce more of these goods, which then will allow the munitions plant to actually produce munitions. That will then allow our export routes or the other nations' import routes to grow and our tariffs to grow from that trade as well. 15K in tariffs, my goodness, this number has gone up. The import of luxury furniture has skyrocketed, hasn't it? Again, as the demand goes up and the price difference between our market and the markets we're importing from goes up, people find it more lucrative to export to us, and then we get not a bigger cut necessarily, the same cut percentage of a bigger overall number as the imports increase. So that's worked out nicely, but we'll see where ammunition ends up starting from 22.6. We'll see where it ends up as some of our upgrades and changes get applied. Looks like the chemical plants are still struggling to employ too many people, but that should be a short-term issue, because if we flip over to the munitions plants, we'll see they're having a decent time adding more employees, and as they do that, the demand for explosives will go higher and higher, and that will mean that the chemical plants will be able to make more money as they try to hand those explosives off to the munitions plants, which will then further allow them to employ more people, as you can see up over here. Meanwhile, what is this? We have what going on? The Rajput people are getting quite incensed, and they might kick off a secession attempt over here. That's a little scary. You might be thinking, well, that's not the biggest deal. The only Rajput region we have is Sikh Rajputana, I should say. And you're right, that's a very small attempt at secession. However, it is a diplomatic play, and there are certainly some bad actors in this neck of the woods that might be interested in participating. We still have our truce with the East India Company, so they're not going to get involved, which in a way I would almost love them to, because then we could, I think, flip the script on them and pursue some war goals of our own, though I'm not sure with a secession if that's an option. So it might actually be fine. They might even try the secession and back down, but there's no slowing it down now. The reason this is happening, folks, is because a large number of the population of that culture is currently distressed. I guess I can't see them here anymore, but their overall turmoil reached a tipping point, and you can see the same thing happening with the Kannada people as well. They are very close to starting a secession movement. I say that, but 0.1% chance every week isn't very high. If this number keeps going higher and higher, that chance will get higher and higher as well. So in order to counteract that, you want to make sure the states where turmoil of a particular culture are, getting out of hand are getting special treatment. I mean, I imagine the reason why turmoil is so high with the Kannada folk is because Mysore is still struggling in terms of overall availability of goods. It's still just 84% market access. So why don't we go ahead and take that investment pool money that started to accumulate and build not just one more step of the railway, but also a step of the coffee plantations that we've been pursuing so much. In fact, let's go with 2 steps of the coffee plantation, because I believe they'll be done at the same time. And we will go ahead and pump you up and you up, but keep the furniture manufactories up top as well. So the coffee plantations will be done first in 8 weeks' time, and then we'll get the railway done in about 30 weeks' time. So I'm not in a rush to improve the situation among the Kannada people, but eventually they'll start to apply some pressure, much like the Rajput are doing right now. Nonetheless, let's go ahead and close that window and consider the situation up over here. I'm not too worried. I'll be perfectly honest with you. The diplomatic play is probably going to involve, hopefully, nobody. Don't think it's very likely that they'll care about this minor secession. It's not a big deal. Of course, I say that, and I risk the wrath of the universe, but I think we'll be okay here. Oh, this is interesting. So first of all, this is funny. The Rajput uprising is importing artillery from us. It's like, come on, man. That's twice now in this playthrough we've seen this kind of logic from separatists. But separately, we have Great Britain embargoing us. I'm not sure why. I don't know what we did to upset them, but that's going to cause us some trouble. We don't rely too heavily on their market, which is why, well, this is exactly the reason why I've avoided doing that. But there are some crucial things we get from the British market that are now going to be a bit harder to get. I just don't know if anybody else produces engines quite at the rate that we'll need them for our rapidly growing rail network and all that good stuff. So perhaps we have to invest in motor industries ourselves as well. Rapid industrialization of Punjab over here. I think, yes, we don't really have much of a choice. We've got a fair bit of money. We continue to make more. The gold reserves look decent as well. So as soon as we can, let's go ahead and produce some engines through the motor industries in Punjab as well. Beyond that, I would very much like to get the groceries coming as well, which comes through the food industries. There's general staff unlocked, giving us access to skirmish infantry. We'll get that going in just a moment, but first, like I was saying, let's go ahead and get the food industries going into Punjab as well, so that it's not all about the violent future of our empire, but also about the needs of our people and keeping them fed, right? Let's take a look at all of our barracks over here and get them using skirmish infantry. But folks, that's not all we're going to do. We're also going to finally get first aid activated. Again, that takes fabrics and opium, so we have to start producing more and more of that, and it looks like opium is actually going to get very expensive. That's good to know, but we'll get first aid going nonetheless. And we're also going to get our conscription centers using skirmish infantry and have them using first aid too. This is going to become ludicrously expensive when we have to activate the conscription centers, but they have been extremely helpful in all of our wars so far. So I think it's important that we empower them a bit more, we strengthen them a bit more, so that eventually when our generals are primarily using conscripts on, a front here or there in a massive war, I don't have to worry if the number of battalions I'm looking at are equipped with, opium or not, right? I think, also like to get the mobile artillery going for the conscription centers, but I just wonder if we shouldn't, yes, increase our arms industries and our arms manufacturing capabilities first before we do that. For the time being, I think I'm pleased enough with these adjustments. This will be huge for our army when we have all this in place, but as a reminder, these kinds of adjustments apply a huge negative penalty to all of the stats over here that really matter in determining who's going to win or lose a battle, and that negative lasts for quite a bit of time depending on what kind of changes you're making. So negative 74.17% will slowly but surely adjust, and that negative 33 will slowly but surely become 0, and we'll see these numbers bigger than we've ever seen them before. It looks like ammunition is a little hard to come by over here, even though we're the number 7 producer worldwide. Again, we have to increase the size of our munitions factories. Maybe, hopefully, some of our exports will stop as it becomes more and more viable to keep the goods within our market. We'll see, and we'll keep an eye on it for sure as the shell gun begins to spread, which is actually something that allows us to use smooth bores in the arms industries. That'll produce additional artillery per level, but reduced small arms. So this is when we start to consider, all right, some of these arms industries might be interested in focusing on small arms, others might be focusing on artillery, and we can find a sweet spot in terms of productivity of both of those types of goods across the same factory that produces both of them, but across different parts of the empire. All that nitty-gritty stuff, though, we'll tackle at some other time. We're not there yet. Again, war is still a ways away. We're not just waiting for our truce to end. We are also waiting for our notoriety to drop, right? For our infamy to drop, and there's a long way to go here yet. Though, again, just as a reminder, my patience might wear thin, and I might stop that whole conversation and just dive into war instead. Meanwhile, we're starting to actually take a bit of a hit over here to our gold reserves. It looks as though the investment pool has largely run out, or at least it's about to, and they're not going to be able to help build anything else for a little bit of time. But the coffee plantations just finished down here in Mysore, which will hopefully help keep people calm as we keep the price of coffee down. And it looks like we are still just the number 5 producer worldwide. What do I have to do to push a little bit higher there? Let's see what happens when these guys get fully employed over here, because of course that actually increases our production. And as I speak of that, Bikaner here has backed down in the diplomatic play. They tried to rise up against us. They've decided it'd be better to just shut up and sit down. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. A lot of lives have been saved on this day. Now, as we get almost fully employed enough, let's take a look over here, and there it is. I was wondering how long it would take for us to become a top-tier producer. We are now number 2 in the world, supplanting Portugal, pushing them down to 3, and pushing the East India Company further down as well. I love to see it. That makes us quite a bit more prestigious, and we're getting closer and closer to being a great power. Brazil will be a bit harder to overtake. The gap there is not significant, but it's also not too small. Maybe a bit more coffee will take us there. But I was also thinking of tea, of course. We are in the Indian subcontinent, so we can't just have coffee. We got to have tea as well. And we're already the number 3 producer. Oh my goodness. I would love to supplant the East India Company in our production of tea. I bet that would get Great Britain to remove their embargo on us. And that's not just a a joke. I'm not just I'm not just making light of a popular meme. I'm being very serious. If we take a look at Great Britain and we take a look at one of the most prevalent cultures in their empire, I should say, you'll see they have a literal obsession with tea as per game mechanics, and so I want to try and take advantage of that. Hopefully, as we become a larger and larger producer of tea, they'll stop embargoing us. Maybe our focus on coffee is what got them to embargo us, actually. I'm not 100% sure, but it is sad to see. All right, these steel mills are just about done, which happened at the perfect time, I think, because in a few weeks' time, we're going to get motor industries, and if memory serves me correctly, motor industries do require steel. So I knew deep in my heart that we'd be needing more steel soon, and so there you have it. In about 17 weeks' time, we will most certainly be needing more steel, and we'll be one of the only producers of engines, I imagine, in this part of the world. Yeah, in fact, across the whole world, there's a very centralized bit of engine production going on in Europe, but apart from that, we're going to kick it off in South Asia. Very exciting to be at the forefront of all of these technologies and all of these changes. We'll be a significant producer of quite a few different things, though here we have a bit more competition, it seems, but we'll get there. We'll get there. Improving relations with France has now broken because it sort of reached its capacity, and I think it's time maybe we consider to improve our relations with Awad over here, just to again maybe bring them into the fold peacefully. And we can also consider improving relations with, I'm going to say, Hyderabad down over here, and I'll explain why when the time comes. But it does look like our infamy is still decaying at that plus 25%, while we're, I think, just at our cap over there as far as influence is concerned. So we'll stick with that for the time being. There are some changes I'll be making down the line, but that involves crossing certain thresholds, which again I'll explain when we actually get there. Now, the munitions plants are struggling to perform because of a lack of explosives, so why don't we go ahead and sort that out by getting our chemical plants to upgrade slightly? No, it's just a matter of employment over here. Interesting. I wonder what's going on. It's like we just can't get over the tipping point of affordability over here in terms of paying wages. As you can see, the moment we hire a few people, the costs drop by just enough to make things unprofitable. So why don't we go ahead and take a look at our ranches in Punjab instead and stop them producing fertilizer by going from intensive grazing ranch down to simple ranch. I think that'll reduce the amount of fabric we're producing as well, which is a bit of a bummer, but that might just increase the price of fertilizer ever so slightly, as it has done, and that should maybe encourage the chemical plants to hire some more people and keep them pushing higher and higher, as again that back and forth demand and supply of explosives goes higher and higher to maintain profitability over here. It's looking like that's all we needed over here. Of course, we can adjust the price of iron as well by improving our iron mines to make production cheaper, and that obviously also helps with the weekly balance. But for the time being, this move seems to have done the trick, which is promising. And apart from that, this is exciting. Radicalism is on its way down rather steadily. We're seeing negative 1.01 million. Quite a few from people dying, of course, hopefully of just old age, and perhaps a little bit from the violent suppression of turmoil. But we also see the increase in standard of living having a huge impact. A lot of people still losing their standard of living over here, so we'll have to check up on that. But I just noticed we have violence escalating somewhere. What's going on over here in South Bengal? A peaceful march in South Bengal has suddenly turned violent as protesters and police have begun to clash in the streets. Put them all down by force. Use whatever force is needed. These upstarts should know their place. Do they not understand that the police are there for their safety? We cannot and will not look weak to these radicals. I think we should perhaps have these police back down a bit. It will increase radicals from discrimination, but it'll also increase loyalists from standard of living increases, which is something we're focusing on a lot right now, right? Alternatively, we give the police free rein, which will cause a fair bit of radicalization and mortality as well. No, we will avoid that. Have the police back down over here. And I just noticed, is this the first time we've crossed the 100K threshold for loyalists? We've done a good job over here. Huge bump. I'm not sure what that was from, but might have been the political movement that was just a handful of months ago now, I suppose. Or I suppose, was it a whole year ago? No. Handful of months. Last year is like over here. But this is looking pretty good. I'm very pleased with this, actually. I say that, we just lost 1K, but overall, pretty promising. Can we keep this number going down, though, at a faster rate, perhaps? People still through the roof. And we can see the upper class are seeing their standard of living drop. There was a huge drop right there. I say huge, it was one step, but it still feels big. Same thing with the middle strata and the impoverished as well. Everybody, really, what's so expensive? transportation, but that's been the case for a very long time. Oh, you know what it is? It's that obsession with luxury furniture. I think that's what did us in. Liquor continues to be too expensive as well, so with that noted, let's go ahead and get rid of our additional liquor trade routes over here. My goodness, we sell so much to France. We make so much off of that. Let's cancel the one to the Qing over here. It just makes more business sense for the trade centers. We want to encourage them as well. Though, of course, as I do that, I think the French are perhaps beginning to import more. No, but they're certainly willing to. My goodness. We're trying to protect domestic supply too, but that's not enough to thwart the French and their desire for alcohol. All right, fair enough. It is what it is. We've done what we can there without sacrificing too much. The price of liquor does look a bit better now, so that's promising. But yes, luxury furniture is the next big thing, and I believe we did build upgrades to the furniture manufactories, right? So hopefully that'll help bring the price down over here. We can't adjust production methods, and that's not low enough, so let's go ahead and further upgrade the furniture manufactories in Punjab. We really have to do something about this. Meanwhile, as we complete the railway and the motor industries here as well, we should be able to encourage the railway to grow and provide transportation. Oh, who am I kidding? But they're not going to provide transportation more cheaply. The buy orders are going to be through the roof at all points in time because of the sheer amount of pop consumption over here. Infrastructure is very close to being capped off again. Oh, it can wait. It can wait. We're not in a rush. We also have this technology coming through, right? Modern sewerage, which should help us a fair bit. So I'm going to hold off on that for the time being. But just curious about the provision of luxury furniture, not just locally, of course, but across the entire Sikh market. Looks like the price actually matches across the board. Okay, so I was panicking over nothing. My apologies. Tools, though, are starting to become too expensive again, partly because of so much construction going on, I'm sure, but partly because we haven't upgraded our tooling workshop in quite some time, but we have expanded the various industries that use those tools, right? So let's keep up with that, and looks like we're about to, or rather, we've already sort of crossed the threshold and we're now starting to owe people money again. So after this bout of construction, we're going to go ahead and allow some money to accumulate once more, and we'll allow the investment pool to grow too, so that we can build a little bit across a variety of categories of buildings. Really excited to see the food industries over here get completed, though. We've been talking about them for a very long time, and we've unlocked quite a few production methods for them as well. So I'm looking forward to finally seeing them in action. Again, we're going to see sugar finally get used. Sugar is dirt cheap in the Sikh Empire, so that should be helpful. Grain is also pretty cheap, so we could go all the way up to baking powder, I think. Let's go for that. It'll reduce the number of laborers we employ, but it'll increase the number of engineers and machinists we employ. Again, same applies for sweeteners as well. We have to be very careful about social mobility, right? People can't just go from being peasants to being engineers in one step. So we have to be careful about ensuring enough people become laborers first and then transitioning them into engineers and machinists or whatever else, right? Everything happens in steps. With that said, I do think we have enough laborers just across industries in Punjab in general, so we should be safe to make that change. And then over here, we do not yet have canneries unlocked, but we do have, what is this now? Pot stills or patent stills to produce more liquor. I see. You know what? I think we could go with pot stills. I don't think we need so much more liquor. We're already producing so much from our subsistence farms. So why don't we go ahead and, yeah, chase after pot stills instead. And that should produce just a little bit of liquor, keep the price down for our pops. They're not obsessed or anything, but everybody drinks liquor, it seems. Again, apart from certain faiths that have a taboo on liquor, obviously. We should try to appease the people that do drink, though. Down over here, though, on the topic of appeasement, the armed forces are now unhappy, which means obviously we are seeing a lot of money get wasted. Let's up their wages. We'll go from negative 18K, give or take, down to negative 20, and then back up to negative 7 when material waste finally gets deactivated. So paying them more is better than having them with material waste, always. Well, almost always, obviously, there's math involved, but in our case, that's always been the case. The radical count does continue to reduce, meanwhile. This is very promising, good stuff. Hopefully we can keep that going. And now the Punjabi people have become obsessed with sugar. Wow, I can't catch a break here, man. I can't catch a break. Are you for real? Is that going to cause us trouble at the food industries right off the bat? Because sugar is, I mean, it used to be dirt cheap. Is it going to stay dirt cheap? Hopefully, because then this is actually an obsession we can work with here, and looking like we're okay. All right, fair enough. Obviously, as employment goes up, the requirement for sugar goes up as well, affecting the prices overall, but we're at negative 75% compared to base prices, so I doubt even the entire Punjabi population getting obsessed with sugar is going to hurt us that bad. Perfect timing. If we actually get the canneries going, what'll it do? It'll eat up some iron and fish, reducing how much grain it eats up, but then producing more groceries in the form of obviously canned goods. It looks like canned tuna, canned fish in general. Why don't we go ahead and try the canneries and see where we end up over here, and end up over here as well. Price should hopefully dip. We're at negative 32.8%, and I do believe, if memory serves me correctly, yes, people across all sort of wealth levels will use groceries to supplement or substitute other types of food goods that they were previously consuming. Now we've got mechanized workshops going. That is very promising for our textile mills and furniture manufactories alike. Very pleased with this spread. And separately, Restore Right of Assembly political movement has been formed once more. Again, it's quite a bit more radical than I would like it to be, but support for it is very low, so I assume it's going to disband. I don't mind actually going back to the right of assembly, but I would like to avoid a revolution. And again, I'd like to do these things on my own terms as much as possible. All right, with the manufacturing of furniture here being upgraded, we're going to go ahead and shift our attention once more to the investment pool to further reduce our debt. It's gotten quite large actually with all the construction that's been happening, and we're still not seeing the highest our balance can be because we're still building these tooling workshops, but that will slowly change obviously in a week's time. We're going to give our economy some time to recover. It'll take quite a bit of time actually for it to recover from this amount of debt. I just want to make sure we keep that in check. So let's go ahead and use that investment pool as I was saying. While we see a bunch of English people leaving, I believe, the Sikh Empire to go ahead and settle in the state of Kenya. I assume that we only get these migration notifications when they're from our empire or to our empire, so I suppose there's a lot of English folk that are just not having a good time, and so they've decided to leave. Yeah, the English are at about 18% turmoil within our empire. That doesn't seem too bad, but I guess unlike people from, you know, Mysore, unlike the Canada, the English actually have a place they can escape to that they can perhaps call home. Kenya, you know, traditionally the home of the English people. Either way, let's go ahead and stay on task over here on the topic of Mysore. Let's get these guys upgrading their coffee plantations by 2 steps, and we're just going to hold off on tea. As much as I was talking about becoming a leading producer of tea even further than we already are, I would like to, just for my own heart, I think, wait until we acquire Assam to produce tea over there. My favorite tea comes from Assam, and I would very much like to introduce the whole world, I suppose, to Assam tea leaf and become a top-tier tea producer from Assam. Of course, we could consider Darjeeling tea and all that good stuff as well. And don't get me wrong, there's good, like, tea from South India as well. I quite enjoy, I believe Nilgiri is a South Indian tea. I quite enjoy that as well. But, you know, South India is also known for its coffee production. And that's why it kind of inspired me to focus on coffee down over here, so why not get inspired by that when it comes to tea as well, especially when I do have a favorite. So yeah, that's why I'm not doing tea right now. We're sticking to coffee. We'll see how long it takes before we actually acquire Assam, because truth be told, it'll probably be one of our lower priority conquests. It doesn't have too much going for it, though it does have a university. I just don't see it being as much of a rush as, say, you know, Bombay or Andhra down over here. There are other more important states to take from the EIC before we take Assam, and so that means tea production is going to have to wait. And even just saying that seems dirty. I should be rushing tea. Maybe Assam should be a priority. A priority, my goodness. Anyway, modern sewerage has been completed, and that should see us get a much higher amount of infrastructure availability. Our ceiling has been improved rather significantly, which is exactly what I was hoping for. But apart from very quickly highlighting that the situation in North Bengal is still what I would call a situation, let's go ahead and take a look at this situation over here and pick our next technology. I think it's time to... Wow, okay, egalitarianism has been unlocked as well. That is through spread. We'll see what comes in its stead. Again, a little nervous about this one because it might kick off a couple of sort of political movements that we're not yet ready for. However, it's also exciting with that proportional taxation being around the corner, and now proportional taxation, even at a medium level, will generate more tax revenue than anything else that we've been using previously. Again, like I said, change brings change. That's not how I said it earlier, but it's how I'm saying it now. It's very exciting. I love that stuff about this game, so maybe we should consider proportional taxation moving forward. Either way, let's not dwell on that for the time being. Let's go ahead with nitroglycerin and actually complete that research. 15 months is not a very long amount of time to increase the productivity of all of our mines, and in order to actually do that, we will need more explosives. So I'm using all of my self-control to prevent the upgrade of these chemical plants over here. Perhaps we should wait until the demand for explosives goes even higher, and then we can almost guarantee employment at the chemical plants over here. This is a bit of a surprise, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm shocked at this, but we'll get there eventually. Meanwhile, down over here, pharmaceuticals has begun to spread. Not something we'll be able to take advantage of in the near future. Again, not enough extra bureaucracy to get the extra institutions running. But hey, good to have that coming, I suppose. Still, now what's interesting about proportional taxation is that the only interest group that actually supports it are the trade unions. So we really have to empower them quite a bit if we want to get that extra money that we're currently leaving on the table. I mean, come on, let's be real here. A 1.1% chance of passing every however many days is pretty much useless. That would be a waste of effort and time on everyone's part, but definitely something that I would like to consider moving forward. We have to empower the trade unions. Apart from that, again, the biggest changes I would like to make in the near future have to do with the intelligentsia, and they're just so very upset. Their upsetness will slowly go down as radicalism is being taken care of still. It's nice to see a few different shades of red across the empire rather than the one strong, like everyone's unhappy color. And this number is looking very good as well, that negative 1.14 million. Again, a huge part of that is from increases in standard of living. It's actually higher now than the decreases from the standard of living. So that's feeling pretty good, but you can see over here that -7 to intelligentsia is from radicalization, whereas loyalists are providing +1. So as this number continues to grow higher and higher, we should hopefully see the intelligentsia finally come around, and it'll take a little bit of finagling, I think, to get them from -17 to above -10. And then we can get them into the government and start enacting some policies that they'll be fans of. But you can see the intelligentsia are beginning to spread, and I just wonder if we shouldn't invest further in some of our universities to get these guys a bit more powerful as far as their clout is concerned especially. Looks like we've started accumulating gold reserves once more. Again, some time has passed between the last time I spoke and now. We've just been slowly building more things and allowing those constructions to complete. Don't worry, I haven't edited out anything major, any decision making. I like to keep that in because it seems, based on the comments, y'all enjoy that process. But we were just waiting for things to get built and for our gold reserves to accumulate, so nothing major has happened between then and now as we approach the deadline for the truce, and perhaps more importantly, our diplomatic pacts with the EIC. 7.14k isn't all that much money, all things considered, so I don't think I'll miss that if we do decide to stay the course and wait for our infamy to go down just that little bit further. Meanwhile, over here we have prejudiced employers again. English people are having a hard time getting employed in Punjab due to the prejudices of some Punjabi employers. I want to apply for a warehouse job. They took one look at me and told me the job wasn't for my kind. Oh, work is for everyone. That'll reduce our authority by 5%. Ooh, or it's up to bosses to decide who they hire, reducing the standard of living for the English in Punjab. Oh my goodness. I mean, just a couple of sessions ago now I was saying all hands are needed, right? So work is for everyone, and that'll hurt our authority. Ooh, don't like that. Let's go ahead and perhaps remove some of the decrees we have active right now. Which one? Maybe we can stop beating people down over here in South Bengal. They've been with us for long enough. I think their turmoil is still causing issues, sure, but yikes. Fine. We'll stop the violent oppression in South Bengal in order to allow the English to work and prevent the discrimination in the Indian subcontinent, I suppose. More so, I suppose, I want to prevent the radicalization of the English people in the Indian subcontinent. Looks like we still have a munitions goods shortage over here at our barracks, and I'm sure that applies across the board then. So why don't we go ahead and use some of those gold reserves to further upgrade the munitions plants over here. And beyond that as well, I think it's time for us to invest in the arms industries once more as well, again just to produce more small arms and artillery alike and keep those costs down as well. The chemical plants still struggling to keep everybody fully employed. We'll get there. Maybe we should consider the iron mines, or maybe we should consider saving some money. I'm not entirely sure which way I'm swinging right now, but we're okay. We're partly fully employed, which you know, is part of the way there, so we should be fine. The steel mills, though, struggling as well, really, to get fully employed. Interesting. They just can't keep it up. They just can't keep the money flowing. And I do think, you know what, fine. Let's go ahead and look at our iron mines and consider perhaps upgrading these guys. We have to invest over here to keep this price down, and soon enough, in about 9 months time, we should be able to actually get nitroglycerin used here as well. Makes things dangerous, but it also produces a lot more iron, though it also consumes a fair amount of explosives, while increasing employment too. And we'll be doing that across all of our mines, not just up over here, the iron and lead mines, but also down here with the sulfur mines, up here with the coal mines, and down here, of course, with the gold mines as well. Even if they are able to get full employment and maintain productivity, more is more, right? I wonder about the mortality of the various people, and this is why sometimes you'll see such production methods used in other parts of the world. If we were a superpower, an imperial superpower, I should say specifically, we might say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and colonize, I don't know, let's say down over here. I guess everything, the coasts have all been taken, eh? Fine, down over here, let's say, yeah, we'll go ahead and colonize Herero, and we'll get all of our mines over here using those explosives, because, oh, we don't care. We don't care what happens to the people down over here. We just want those goods. We want them shipped back to the Sikh Empire at any cost, by any means necessary. And I love that the game allows you to make those decisions, though it also allows you to take the risk at the expense of, quote-unquote, your own people, right? So it really is a matter of how you take the morality of the decisions of the time. It touches on some sweet stuff that I really enjoy talking about in terms of yeah, imperialism and the need for more as you try to grow your empire, right? Like, we're literally talking about risking the lives of our own people. If you decide to apply you know, the idea of uprisings to that conversation, you wonder, well, hang on a second, what if our people start to die because of the use of explosives, and then the survivors of those people get very upset, and all of a sudden we have a whole hassle on our hands? No, we can't have that happening. Instead, we'll go to this far-off land and let those people die, and then we don't have to worry about an uprising or anything like that, because if they try anything, we'll just gun them down, right? It's a dark conversation, I suppose, but a very real conversation, and the game doesn't shy away from that, which is nice. A lot of games set in these kinds of eras are a little shy, and I understand why, to tackle some of those conversations, but Victoria 3 dives headlong, right? And I commend the game for doing that and making choices viable, I suppose, in either direction. And that's the most important thing. That's the hardest thing to balance as well. Either way, to digress from my digression, down over here we have some interesting aggression. Great Britain have declared the East India Company to be their rival. Wow, things are heating up over here as we get closer and closer to the declaration, potentially, of war against the East India Company. Our truce is over in less than a month's time, folks. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to stay patient. What's our infamy at? We're at 50 still. My goodness. So if each conquest, if each state costs us 30, we can only get 2 states? Oh man, I don't know. I just don't know. I guess at that point in time, I turn to you for your input and your thoughts. What do you guys think? Should we wait until our infamy hits 0? It'll allow us to further our economic development. We're doing so well right now. Radicalism is really, really far down. In fact, we've dropped by 10 million in this one session. We started at 35 million, if I recall correctly, and now we're down to 25.2, so almost 10 million, but let's round down here, right? Or round up, I suppose. That's huge. We lost 10 million radicals. We've also seen loyalists increase significantly, so we've been doing a lot in this time of peace and prosperity. We have had, in fact, peace and prosperity, so I feel very good about that. Do we keep it going? Do we keep building more buildings? Do we keep, you know, industrializing and modernizing and getting all these fun new pieces of equipment and things like, you know, groceries going? Or do the dark times come once more, and do we declare war on the East India Company? Again, if we decide to make this diplomatic play, we'll be facing off against a sizable navy, which I think I'm going to try and cut down with this next diplomatic play, whether it happens now or later. And we also have a sizable army we'll be facing off against, though, to be fair, our own army isn't too far off, especially when you take the conscripts into consideration too. Remember, they'll be a bit more expensive this time around, so perhaps I should consider a few more, you know, gold reserves before we dive into this war. But I'm seriously thinking about it now, folks. I'm seriously thinking about it. France might get involved, which is obviously very scary. At that point, we can always back down, and if France doesn't get involved, who knows, maybe the East India Company will get to back down instead. Or maybe, in a surprising twist, Great Britain will get involved against the East India Company, with whom they have soured relations. Folks, hate is a two-way street. East India Company have declared Great Britain to be their rival as well. Alright, things are heating up in the subcontinent, folks, even though it's December. This is where we're going to call it a session. Next session might actually see us kick off the war. I would love to hear your thoughts, folks, so let me know. War or peace, conquest or prosperity? One sometimes leads to the other, but not always in the direction you want. This is the session, folks. I hope you enjoyed this one. I'm very pleased with our progress across the board over here. Radicalism has dropped. Loyalism has gone up. Our GDP is looking fantastic. We're producing a lot of coffee. We're producing a lot of gold. Everything's looking good. My goodness, we're industrializing, modernizing, and we're crushing the East India Company. As always, folks, a massive thanks goes out to all of the channel members and patrons who've been supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Y'all keep us alive and running smoothly. And of course, a big ol' thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.